Okay, so now that Firebase is set up, you can use the web interface to see the contents of your database in real time. Right now, the Pets Apps demo database has nothing in it. So we're going to start filling it with some data. Okay, so back to our front end code. The first thing we do is in document ready, we're going to do this. We're going to say const database equals firebase.database. Now this is using the Firebase library, the client-side library that we imported to be able to grab a firebase.database object and assign it into the variable, the constant variable database. Okay, so the next thing the next bit of code we write is we want to do an event handler on reset button. So what is reset button? I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of the file. Reset button is a new button I put up here, which is just says reset database. And just for completeness, delete button is down here, delete from database, and delete name box is the box where you put what name is being used. So this is delete name box. I'm just going to inspect with inspector to show you. Not too much room here. Make this smaller. Delete name box is here. Delete button is here, and this is called reset button. So right now, when I click reset button, I'm going to search for the reset button handler. The jQuery click reset button handler just says console log resetting the database. It doesn't do anything but console log, but it's a good idea to console log everything just in case. So I'm going to reload and then reset database. When I click this button, it says resetting the database. Great. That means that this code is running. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to reset the database with some initial set of values. And as a reminder here, I put in comments the fake database JavaScript object we use all the way back in Pets App v1, where, as you recall, we just created a JavaScript object and used it as a fake database. There was no file anywhere. It was just in memory as a fake database object. Remember this said Philip with job pet, John, job pet, Carol, job pet. So we want to replicate this data in the Firebase database. So to do that, the way we do it is the first thing we do is we say database.ref user slash. So what this does is that this grabs a reference to a collection of data called user slash. You can think about it as like a directory or some kind of a URL. And then to remove the entire collection, we'll say users remove. The reason why we're doing this is because when we hit the reset button, we want to remove everything that was in user so we can start inserting again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to write data to the database. So to write, we say database.ref user slash Philip, and then .set, and then an object, job professor pet cat.jpg, and the object and the set. Whoa. Let me not word wrap. Okay, so what does this line say? This says, give me a reference to an object in my database called user slash Philip. So this is, you can think about it as the Philip object in the user's directory or collection. So once we grab this, we're going to call the set method on it, and set will actually set the data for this user, I guess. And what do we set it to? We set it to an object with keep job value professor, keep pet value cat. And if you notice, this object right here is the exact same object as this one. In fact, I could have just copied and pasted the code. It's the exact same object, right? So what the fake database said in v1 was Philip is the key maps to job and pet. Here, what we say is in Firebase, essentially the same thing, is that user slash Philip is the key, and then we're going to set this the corresponding value to job professor pet cat. So let's save this and let's just run it and see what happens. So in order to show the full effect, I want to show the Firebase console on the right side. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can all see it. Okay, so the right side is a web page that is a view of the current state of the database, which is null right now. And the left side is me clicking on the button in Pets App. So I'm going to reload this just to make sure I have the latest code. Okay, I'm going to click Reset Database. Now look what happens to the right side. There we go. So on the right side, what I see is I first see users up here. Inside users, I see Philip. And inside here, I see job, professor, pet, cat. This is exactly the data I was trying to insert into the database. If I do this again, let's see what happens. If I reset again, it actually has this weird green and red. Red means that somebody is getting deleted from the database, and green means somebody's getting added. So this all happens really fast. What this says is that I'm getting deleted and then I'm getting added again. So, it essentially resets me. So I can do the exact same thing with John and Carol, which are the two other users. So recall we want to insert John and we want to insert Carol. So I'm just going to copy this code, database ref user/John, and then set, and then I'm just going to copy what it says for John here. Job, student, pet, dog. Fix the spacing a little bit and end the parentheses, and I'm going to do the same thing for Carol. Set, and then I'm just going to copy paste directly from here. Okay. Now that we have all this, when we click this reset button, what should happen is that console log resetting the database, great. And then it will use this database object. Remember, this database object came from above, which was imported from the database, the Firebase code from Google, this one. So this database object will be used to find users and remove everything from it, which corresponds to this users. It'll find users and remove everything from users and just remove everything. And then it will find users Philip, which doesn't exist yet, but it will be a new thing, and it will set it to Professor Cat and then John and Carol and so on. So let's run it. And to run this, remember we have to reload our page. Otherwise we won't load our latest JavaScript code. And then let's see what happens in the right side. So we're going to hit reset and watch the right side. And there we go. So now there's 3 users, Carol, John, and Philip. Let me expand. There we go. We have 3 users now, Carol, John, and Philip. The order isn't guaranteed because these databases don't necessarily store stuff in insertion order, but all the data is there. And if I reset, I'm going to get the same idea. So when I reset, all 3 disappear in red, and then all 3 appear again in green. So, they disappear in red, and they appear again in green. So this works. And the cool thing here now is that I can shut down my server. I can shut down my computer. I can restart my computer. My computer can explode. Anything can happen to my computer. This data is all living on Firebase's cloud, or Google's cloud more precisely, because Google bought Firebase. So this data is all within some Google or Firebase data center somewhere. It's not on my computer. It's not on my own server. My computer can crash and, get its hard drive deleted, and nothing will happen to this data. Okay, so that said, let's hook up some other actions. Let's do the thing for all users. Actually, let's delete user first. Why not? Let's delete a user. So, So we have this thing called delete button here. Delete from database, and recall that there's a delete name box whose value we can grab. So the idea here is if I want to say delete Philip from database and click this button, I want the Philip data to be deleted. And if I say Carol, I want the Carol data to be deleted, and John, and so forth. So right now there's no handler for delete button, so let's write one at the bottom. So we'll say delete button click, just a regular click handler, anonymous function, no parameters, open, close. Great. And then what do we want first? The first thing we want to do is get the name we want to delete. So we're going to use jQuery again, delete name box dot val. That's how we get the value of this right here. And then just for check, let's do console log dot name. It's always a good idea to console log these things just so you can check to make sure your intuitions are correct. So reload. A common source of bugs is that, what you're trying to read from is not what you think. So let's just say Philip here, and let's see what happens below. Delete from database. Good. It says Philip. ASDF. Good. Carol. Good. So we know that it's running this console log. Okay. So in order to delete somebody, we want to not only access name, we want to access users plus name. Because recall that when we inserted in data, all the way up here, we use user/Philip, user/John, user/Carol. And the reason why we use user is that it makes it a bit cleaner because these are all conceptually users. So we all want all this data under a user's collection or directory, however you like to call it. There's some hierarchy there. So what we want is we want to grab a reference to users/name. So when we save this and we run again, let's see what happens. I'm going to put Philip here, users Philip, and then Carol, users Carol, and so on. Okay, so now that we're pretty happy with this, what we can do now is we can again use database.ref. Database.ref. This will grab a reference to the object that's specified by the name here. So if I put Carol in here and I hit delete from database, this will grab a reference to the user's Carol part of the database. And if I put Philip, it will grab a reference to the user's Philip part and so forth. So what do I want to do once I have a database.ref? Well, what I want to do is I want to remove it or delete it from the database. And it turns out that the API call in Firebase for delete is called remove. So this will find user/Philip or whoever and then just remove their data. That does a delete. Okay, let's try it and see. Okay, so let's see what happens here. So when I say Philip, when I delete from database, look at what happens on the right side. Pay attention to the data. When I hit, notice how Philip goes in red, which means he's disappearing, and then he's gone. And now let's go to Carol. I'm going to hit delete again, and Carol is in red, and Carol is disappearing. And if I put in somebody wrong, nothing actually happens because that user, ASDF or whatever, cannot be found in the database. So now only John is left. So how do we get everybody back? Fortunately, we have a reset button. So once we hit reset, let's see what happens to the database. Everybody comes back. So basically, John is deleted. In theory, what actually happens is that John gets deleted, and then everybody, all three of them, get inserted back. So now our database is back normal, and I can delete John now if I want. And watch the right side. John is red, and then he flashes, and he's gone, and so forth.